Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Coin. I have my dear husband, Jake, on the pod with me today. Hey, babe.
The one and only. How you doing?
Unlike my football teams, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you have too many.
Jake is horrified that I am a fan of not one, but 4 football teams. He thinks that it is horrendous. And just like you are meant to marry only one person, you should have loyalty to only one football team. So we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that, babe.
You make bandwagon fans look virtuous because you have like 5 of them.
Listen, I'm really upset that football is over. That's the real problem here.
Those are Sundays. Love those.
All right. So what are we talking about on the pod today?
We're talking about love and money in our relationship and how it's changed over time and where we are today.
Yes. And we're talking about how we're millionaires.
Oh, that too. That's how it's changed.
That's definitely been a big change. But we wanted to record this podcast because the team thought that it would be interesting to share when you do cross the $1 million threshold as partners, what changes? So in order to get you guys up to speed, in case you have not listened to other episodes of Love and Money, which you're welcome to go back to, we should really just fill people in on how we got to where we are today. So I'll take us back quickly that we met 6 years ago at Austin's South by Southwest Festival. I was living in New York at the time. I had just quit my job, so it was my favorite South by Southwest yet because I wasn't there to do business. And I just wanted to kind of hang and party and have a good time. And so I met you. You came to New York a month later, pursued me quite heavily.
You were the one.
He knew that. I did not know that the other way. I thought,
who is this child?
Yeah, I was like, look at this cute little sales bro trying to hang out with me in New York when he lives in Austin. And now we've been married for almost 3 years. So, well done, you.
Oh, yeah. I knew it.
I did not. I thought 5 years younger, hasn't had a serious girlfriend, never lived with a woman. No way. Talk to me in 3 girlfriends from now. But Jake, something that I love so much about you, babe, is that you really make big bets and you go in with so much conviction.
I do.
In fact, I think that's a little bit part of your investing style, which I really respect. So before we get into our money now, I also just wanted to share what our money situation looked like when we got together, because it was vastly different. So when we first got together, Jake had some credit card debt from taking out all the ladies for fancy cocktails.
Yes.
No, that's true. You showed me where you used to take them and everything. And I had some business debt from a previous company that I was paying off. We both had about $20,000 in the stock market. His was primarily in employer-sponsored retirement accounts. Mine was just in a Betterment brokerage account. And mine was really new. And so was my whole money obsession, because I had been working in New York for basically my entire 20s, making very little money when I started at the Estee Lauder companies. Pay your people better. And then making a lot of money by the time I was in my late 20s, but I had nothing to show for it. So I knew that something was awry. Even though I made good money in the 6 figures, I had nothing in my savings and investment accounts. I didn't even know how to invest. I didn't even really understand what investment accounts I needed or if I needed them, because I was at a company that didn't offer a 401k. So I was a bit of a shit show, as many of us are. No shame in that game. We don't get taught this stuff. And so I actually had left my fashion technology job to start working with a company that was all about financial wellness because I knew I needed that. So I was really attracted to it. I was learning a lot. And when Jake and I got together, I was just vomiting all of what I knew back to you. So maybe tell people what it was like when we first got together, just in terms of how quickly we started to talk about money or even prioritize money goals together.
Yeah, so like right when we got together and we're still dating and whatnot, Allegra was still very much working for that other company and being involved in the personal finance space. And I wasn't necessarily in the best place, not a good place, not a bad place, but she definitely was always talking about money all the time. And I wasn't afraid of talking about money, but she kind of would take it to the next level. And it was everything from, how we should be better expense managers when we go out, going to the right happy hour whenever instead of going out to expensive dinners. And even to the point where as we started talking more seriously, more and more, I had this really annoying car that I had just gotten. It was too expensive. It was kind of like a luxury purchase for something I thought I could afford, but it just brought me out of whack. And she was like, well, you have this ugly car either way, so you should totally get rid of it. And by the way, this is all happening while we're still long distance relationship. So it's not like she walked and saw my car and was like, oh yeah, like this and that, you should get rid of it. We were just talking about it on
No, I didn't even know if it was ugly yet. I just knew all the numbers. And I said,
And
well,
then
if
she
you don't
saw I was
like
ugly.
financial, I said, if you don't like that financial decision, why don't you undo it?
Yeah. And then I remember we did like a whole kind of soft plan together with not just that, but just in general, like what are some things that you could do? And I think like a month or so later, I started implementing a lot of those, and I would be like, hey, like surprise, I did X, Y, and Z. I automated even a higher credit card monthly payment, got rid of the car in a couple of months. And I think that level of trust and that level of interest in this like shared idea was really important to us, because I think both of us felt like we were on the right track for certainly a startup job, really living in a really awesome city, friends, this and that. But yet we still felt like there was something, like a piece that was missing, and there was something more to be had. And at the time, I don't think we could really put our finger on what that was, but we knew this was the general direction. And then obviously a relationship kind of took off, and then I convinced you to move here to Austin. And I think the light bulb clicked for you to say, hey, a lot of these ideas that I have for myself and for us, you can achieve them way more easily and more effectively in Austin compared to New York. And it's a cold, miserable place. So it was with a win.
Okay, a few things. One, in case listeners want to know what that god-awful car was, it was a Volkswagen Golf. You know, the ones with the honk butts?
GTI manual transmission. It was a rocket.
It was so ugly. I cannot believe he thought that this was a cool guy's car and that chicks were going to go crazy.
It was
so
black on the outside, racing interior on the inside, leather. It was slick. Allegra did not like that.
It was terrible, but I do like the car you replaced it with. That is what started our love for Volvos. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to say is that, yeah, we were living in, I was in New York, he was in Austin, and we really were committed to making these big changes with our financial lives. I was already a little ahead, and I was telling him everything that I was doing, and he was jumping on it, getting the credit card paid off, getting out of the car situation, figuring out how he can make his monthly expenses, just being a little bit better of a expense manager there. But ultimately, what we did realize is that when we were talking about moving together, and I obviously tried to convince him to New York because I thought my job was so important, and I was an executive at a startup, and he needed to come to me. P.S. We're in Austin, so Jake won. What really got me in his negotiation was how much further our money and how much faster our financial goals could happen in a lower cost of living city. So just to give you all an idea, when I was living in New York before I moved here, I was paying $2,000 a month for a teeny tiny bedroom. And when I moved here, we started paying $1,800 a month together for a swanky downtown one-bedroom apartment. It had all the bells and whistles, marble countertops, a washer and dryer. I've never had a washer and dryer in New York. I was living the life. A pool, a hot tub, a gym, the works. So
Great deal.
it was. And then we started doing a bunch of house hacking where we actually bought houses, and our goal was to have nicer places to live and pay less each move, which I shared that in another podcast. So back to today. Now that you all kind of have our backstory, Jake, what are our numbers now? What is our monthly income and what sources does it come from?
Yeah. So net, we're making about $13K a month, and that's coming from various places. Traditional W-2 income. We have several rental properties, as you mentioned before. And then on the smaller end, we have some stock market dividends that we're just reinvesting back into the portfolio.
Cool. So that's what we make. And then our monthly investing rate, we take 28% of that. That was the net number, by the way, not our gross income, but our net. And we invest 28% of it. So drum roll, our current net worth is a little over $1 million. It's been fluctuating. If y'all have been looking at all the asset prices, both in the real estate market, which we have a good amount of real estate, and in the stock market. But we crossed that $1 million threshold last year, and we're still past it, and it feels awesome. How does it feel for you once we became quote unquote millionaires?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of ways it feels the same in a sense that we've never really felt overextended. I think we've always tried to make sure that we don't feel that way from the beginning, because we have various passive income streams, and we live, we'll get into in some of the specifics of what we're, things we care about with our spending and whatnot. But the way it does feel different is that there's certainly a lot more going on, right? We have more properties that adds to our net worth, but that's more rental properties we got to manage. There's a bigger dividend and stock market portfolio, so that needs tending to rather than just a target date fund, right? So as it grows and things like that, we'll talk about this part a little later, but with our current setup, there's a good amount of maintenance, so it feels like there's still a lot going on other than our day-to-day lines with our job, and that obviously we have a new daughter, so that's a new thing we have to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. That's great.
She's expensive already.
And it's only going to get worse. So, so yeah, that's where we're at. But
yeah, I would say for me, it doesn't feel anything other than normal. I always knew we'd be millionaires. I was very targeted in our goal for when we would become millionaires. And I mean, we plan to be multi-millionaires.
Yeah.
How much money do we want in our lifetime, babe?
I mean, I think we've talked about different numbers, but I think there's like at the end of the day, like later on in life in like the 30s, but what's the walk away number, right? That's like today, if you get 8, it's over. Like it game over.
Yeah, we could be really effective, extremely efficient, and live very well on $8 million. But I think that we will be more like 30 millionaires.
And by efficient, more like, I don't even think efficient. I think we would have to try very hard to not make that work.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the choices that we've made to help us get to this mark.
So yeah, I would definitely say, obviously, you going all in on Factora versus us just working 2 jobs. I think that was a really big, change in our lives.
And I'll just interject there to say, anyone who's either taking the Wealth Circle or interested in taking the Wealth Circle, we talk about how one of the 3 asset classes is the business asset class. And if you stop and think about it, probably in your life, the wealthiest person you know is a business owner, or the wealthiest family you know are wealthy from some sort of business that was either started a few generations up or recently. It doesn't matter. But basically, if you work a regular job, you have a cap on how much you can earn, and there's no ceiling when you own your own business. So when I moved to Austin, I knew I wanted to start my own company. I knew I wanted to help women with wealth building as I was growing mine so quickly, and then even faster once Jake and I we became financial partners before we became life partners in terms of official marriage documentation. We had already bought 3 houses together. We had all the combined finances, but we had the same accounts at different institutions. If anything, it was great when we got married and we could consolidate a bunch of things. But me going all in on Factora was not easy. I didn't take a paycheck for about 15 months. And Jake had to agree, which he did so willingly, babe. And I always stop to say, like, I can't believe this guy who was just my boyfriend was willing to support my dreams by effectively affording our life for that whole time. We literally figured out how we could budget to just live off of Jake's salary for the foreseeable future because we didn't know if and when Factora would be profitable. Yeah. Skip ahead to today, we both work at Factora. We have built a family business, and we're not the only people who work at Factora. We have additional employees. So I just wanted to point out that that really has been the biggest financial move we've made to help us get to millionaire status.
And just to add, I mean, those were initially lean years and kind of uncertain times, but that first part is kind of the flashy part, right? Us going Factora full time, it worked out. That's like the romanticized part. But the other side of that, those lean years, I mean, we said no to a lot of stuff and still say no to a lot of things, right? It's, for a year and a half or so, you're not taking a salary. Even then when you did, it was basically a very small salary just to start being able to help because as we wanted to do more things. But we had to say no to a lot of things, a lot of weddings, a lot of trips. I mean, even before and during COVID, we basically said we're really not going to travel. Yeah. So for everyone, that's going to be something different, right? Values-based spending.
We also chose not to have a real wedding. There were 4 people at our wedding. We spent $1,000 on it. We basically went to lunch with my best friend who married us and hired a photographer.
We've been a 1-car family our entire time, and that we buy old cars that are over 100,000 miles. And that's not to say you don't have to do this exact same thing. It just what those things.
Yeah, we also, even with our house strategy, so we did the buy a primary, flip it into a rental a few times, and that's a load. It's a load to move in, upgrade, move out, get tenants in, but that was how we were able to do it strategically and creatively and with less money. And one thing we always talk about or caution is the phrase house poor. We could have bought nicer houses, as in more expensive houses, but we chose not to because we didn't want to be stretched. So we've done a lot of different things.
The lenders were pushing us like, oh, you only want to spend this much on a house?
Well, yeah. Lenders are like, but we can approve you for $1.5 million. And we're like, no, we only want to spend $600,000.
Yeah. I mean,
we want to get into how wild that is, but lenders and real estate agents are not necessarily financially minded. They're probably just like you and me. They didn't get any formal education classes, and they are people helping you make some of the most expensive decisions of your life. And there's no real training there or understanding. And remember, at the end of the day, it's your life. So thank you, mortgage broker and real estate agent, but we need to do what's right for our family and not overbuy or have a monthly nut that's too hard and stressful to maintain. So, okay, those are the things we did to get to millionaire status: acquire a bunch of creative real estate, build Factora, keep our investment rate high and consistent, and just DCA, baby, dollar cost average into the market, a portion of our incomes every month, month in, month out, even when there was the crash in the beginning of COVID, even when there was, the wild situation that was going on at the end of last year. Is there anything you would have done differently as we were building our wealth? Any regrets, so to speak?
I mean, we definitely went slim on the cars. I think even now with a kid and a dog, it's basically everyone's really jammed. But I mean, I think realistically, because we've had so many properties and things like that, we've always had a lot of cash just because there's always been a lot of emergencies with houses or vacancies. And I think maybe I would have wished we would have put a little bit more actively in the market rather than having a literal pot of cash in a savings account. Easy to say in a bull run, but last year S&P went down 25, 26%. So you know, it just depends. But in hindsight, I think that would probably have been the better.
Yeah, and I guess I have two regrets. One is, it's probably easy to listen to us and think, oh, if you just get really frugal for a few years, look how much productivity and success you can have. But I think that we've both talked about there are times where we got a little too aggressive with saying no to things. For instance, my family is from Brazil, and my uncle is the best host in the world. And I never got a chance to take Jake to that family home and experience that before he's now sold it and is pretty much out of Brazil. So I think things like that, those are once in a lifetime trips.
Yeah,
we probably should have said yes to. And then the other thing would be with this property that Jake's in his home office. I'm down the hall, about 3 doors down in my home office. I was so devoted to being in this one little circumference around Austin that if I had opened that up by even a quarter of a mile, I would have found this house for $40,000 to $60,000 cheaper 6 months before. We've been looking that whole time. So, there is being very clear on the things you want and prioritizing those, but you got to be flexible too, because we knew we needed a new home for the bid, and we paid a little more than we wanted to for this one. In fact, this house didn't even appraise for what we bought it for, so we had to bring an extra $38,000 to closing to cover that difference. So there's that. Okay, let's see. What else? What about now that we have crossed that threshold? What have we changed in our financial life, if anything?
Yeah, I think for me, since I am the one managing all the rental properties and overall just primary home maintenance, I used to do everything myself for the most part, unless it was a really critical, difficult thing to do. Now I'm much more of the perspective of my time is valuable, and unless I can solve it in 5 minutes, I'm just going to pay the trusted book of service providers that I have. And to be fair, I have that trusted, contact list because I did so much on my own, and then I leaned on certain people to help me when it was needed. But that's part of the final product. You do a lot yourself, and then as you build your wealth and you start to try to scale this and save more time, start leaning on people who can do it better and fast.
Totally. I would say the exact same thing. Basically, now I am so much more into paying for convenience.
With specific kind of convenience. Not, I think we also try not to, it's not like we Uber Eats every meal, right? It's like very specific.
No. But for us, we made a choice that we wanted to have in-home childcare because we both work from home, and we wanted to be near our child as much as possible in our early life. And so, yeah, it'd be a lot more affordable to drop her off at a daycare, but we pay for a nanny, and we both value that. And that is extremely convenient to leave a meeting and go kiss my daughter and then go back into a meeting. We also built a home gym for convenience. Austin is really hot, and it's really annoying to get in the car when it's 100 degrees and try and get yourself to the gym. So we have a home gym. We also have a virtual trainer that trains us in the home gym. There's, I think, a lot of things that we wouldn't have even considered back in the day that we're like, no, that works for our value set. We're going to spend money on it. Okay, well, what about any lessons that you've learned, either as an individual or a couple, when it comes to building our wealth?
Yeah, I mean, I would say while it was painstaking to actually merge all the finances, all the accounts, that took a little bit over a month, and it's just annoying because you're dealing with financial institutions. It has made pretty much every conversation and every strategy meeting, so to speak, way easier because it's all on one dashboard. Or if you don't know, you have the same login, you see the same accounts. It makes all of this stuff a lot easier. And the way I see it is that, we're life partners, and to say, or to be at arm's length, oh, but not with finances, that just seems just strange to me. And so I think even I was surprised by how much easier it was now that everything was combined. I thought it would be easier, but it's actually like so much better. It's
Totally. And for anyone who's interested or cares, Factora is 100% agnostic about where you bank or what brokerage accounts you use. I mean, there's obviously Factora fan favorites that people are constantly talking about in our Slack community, but we do primarily all of our banking with Capital One. We then have our high yield savings account separately and broken out in different buckets with Ally Bank. And then we have our brokerages with Charles Schwab, just to try and simplify. And we used to have so much more than that. I think I mentioned initially I had Betterment when I started my first brokerage with a robo-advisor. I'd had Titan, I'd had Vanguard. We had all these accounts because we wanted to try everything. And so we just consolidated to make things a lot simpler and easier for us to see. And I would say the big lesson I've learned, and it's not just from us, but from other people and couples who I've observed have financial issues, is that financial transparency when you're in a partnership means a lot. Like, I do think that there is something such as financial infidelity. If you are doing something that your partner doesn't know about, even if they don't find out, it's nefarious, like there is so much trust when it comes to money and what you're doing with yours. And so I've just watched so many people be like, oh, my partner won't tell me how much debt they have. It makes me concerned whether or not I should marry them, blah, 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 blah. We tell each other everything unless it's an under $200 expense. Like, if it's above that, we are communicating. Otherwise, don't tell me about what weird thing you're getting for one of our properties. Don't care. Or a kitchen item. I'm going to appreciate it when you cook food for me in it, but, don't care about your pants. Yeah. Okay, babe. So what's up next for us? What are our next financial goals?
Yeah. Well, I think I know we want to have many more children. I think even both of us have been pleasantly surprised by how much we've just loved having our first daughter. And I always knew I wanted to be a dad, and I want to have more. So at least 2, ideally 3 total. And so that means in the short term, just got to save enough cash to put a good down payment on the next house. I think previously when we've bought houses, we've essentially bought a house for the next 2 to 3 years. Basically, we call it the stair step. So first place was like a 2-bedroom condo, had stairs, so like a townhome basically, and then we've kept progressing along. And now it's like, okay, well, probably the next house we need to save a little bit more so that we can have the house.
Yeah, the family house.
The family house.
Which I never grew up in a family house. My mom and I moved all the time. I probably lived in, no lie, 20 houses before I went to boarding school at 14. So that's, not even a year sometimes in certain houses. But Jake grew up in a family home, and they have a lot of memories about being there young and just the look of the house and the den and all of that. I think both of us really want kind of that grounded family space. And like you said, we want a bunch of bambinos. So we used to joke that our first house that we would have our kid in was called Bam Terrace. That's what we're in now. Now we want Bam Estate. So that's what we're staying for next. I know my super short-term goal is to get the hell out of Austin this summer, because I'm not going to be pregnant like I was last summer. And then I would say our other really important goal is just to keep working through Factora's mission. I mean, our mission is 1 million women to 1 million net worth. We've had so many women, including myself, cross that marker, which is awesome. But 1 million is a lot. So we have a long way to go, and we want to just keep making Factora incredible. And then I would say for the mid to long-term stuff, we've always talked about having a ranch, maybe making some of our own olive oil on said ranch. And yeah, I think I would be very into sending our kids to boarding school. I went to an all-girl boarding school in Virginia. Jake went to a private high school that was practically like a boarding school, very close-knit in Puerto Rico. And we both really enjoyed our high school experiences, not so much our college experiences. So I think that's something that's pretty important to us too.
For sure.
Okay. Well, I think that this has been a really fun episode. Sweet huzz of mine. Is there any final thing you would like to get off your chest?
Ooh. Let's see.
That's a loaded question. Keep it to the topic, Gabe, about millionaires or personal finances as a couple. Anything we may have missed that would be worthy of sharing?
Yeah, I mean, I would just take the time just to re-echo that I love being married to you, and I love being completely combined to you at the hip, and including the financial side. I know there's a lot of money advice out there that say, oh, kind of be together, but have some of the stuff to yourself. And at the end of the day, it's a very personal decision. But I think if you really do find that right partner and you are starting a family and all this stuff, I know a big part of Factora is helping women take their share of the financial conversation with men where they've traditionally kind of owned those spaces. Even if they're involved, they're not really involved. And so I think really the best way to do that is to make sure that if you're on even footing with the financial situation, even if you make more than your husband or you make the same or whatever it is, if you're both involved with where all the information is stored, the same bank accounts, the same brokerages, I think that will go a long way to effectively making as many women as possible on the same footing as men. Because at that point in time, it doesn't matter if you make more or less. What matters is being involved in day-to-day, year-to-year decisions about the money. Because if you're not in control of that, you're not. You could make 10x more than the man, but if he's managing it all, you're not really involved.
And you wouldn't believe how often we see that. We see a lot of women come into Factora who, some are even getting divorced. And they're like, I made a lot of money, but I let him be in control of all the investment decisions. And I'm not really sure where the money is or whether it was invested appropriately. And now we're trying to untangle things. And I just don't want that for any woman. So I would agree with you, babe. It is a personal decision and everyone needs to do what feels right for them. But at least for you and I love being partners 100%. And to me, that means partners in love, partners in finances, partners in business, partners in parenthood, like all the way, all the way.
I agree. That's why we're such great partners, or one of many reasons why, I think.
Well, should we wrap up this episode and then I'll meet you in the hall for a belly hug?
Sure.
All right. Love you, babe.
Love you too.
If you enjoyed this episode, come join us in a Well Circle. It's our live, online, 12-week course and community where we teach you how to create a personalized financial plan alongside hundreds of other women building wealth. It will change your life and your money for good. You can apply at factorawealth.com/wealth circle. That's factorawealth.com/wealth circle. See you in the next episode.